with the company. As I said before, if you're looking at some of the major programs, Dentrix, EagleSoft, Curve, Open Dental, SoftDent, PracticeWorks, they're all good programs. They're all going to do much more than you'll ever use in their software. And if you can't find something with all of those major ones that you're not happy with, I'm not sure if I can help you. But I think for the most part, all the good ones are, there's a lot of good stuff out there. Is it possible to have dual keyboards and mouse in a wireless configuration for both doctor and assistant sides in the operatory? That is a challenge. The problem is not having two mice and two keyboards. You can have as many as you want in there. The problem is that on most computers, you only have one cursor. So in other words, if the assistant's trying to chart something and the dentist, he clicks his mouse, it's going to move the cursor over onto his screen. So that is where the challenge. I just found one program that seems to be able to do multiple cursors. I haven't tested it yet. So my basic answer is no. There's no easy way. You can certainly have it there, but more often than not, you're going to fight for it. We always recommend a wireless keyboard and mouse in the operatory, ideally in some type of central location, like a 12 o'clock cabinet, and that way you can both share it as necessary. But there's no easy way to be able to do that. What do I recommend for photo imaging software like Photoshop, Picasa? Those are them. I mean, those are great programs out there. I think on my blog a couple of days ago I may have mentioned one there as well. So go to my blog. There's a few photo imaging ones out there. There's Adobe. I think it's called Photo Elements or Elements, something like that. But there's a lot of decent ones out there. It's all personal preference. That when it comes to something like that, find something that's easy for you to use that you can use in a couple of minutes, and I think you're going to be happy in the long run. Had another question about taking a picture of a film. I'm just trying to get through some of this here. There's a lot of great questions here. I really want to make sure we try to get to as many of these as we can. Just trying to, how should a new office be wired? Cat 5, 5E, Cat 6. I'm not sure if you can even find Cat 5 any longer. If it's not a huge cost difference, I would always recommend going with Cat 6. Cat 5e and Cat 6 can handle what is currently the fastest speed, which is called gigabit speed. That's 1,000 megabytes per second. The next one down the road is 10 gigabytes per second, which the Cat 5e will probably not be able to handle. So I would say if you're building a new office, go with Cat 6 unless it's a huge difference in cost. 5e will probably last you for at least another 5 or 10 years, so I wouldn't be too worried about that. I'm just trying to get to some of these other questions here. Another question about Perio Exec. Perio Exec is probably one of the best practice management softwares for periodontists out there. As many of you know, I did practice perio for 10 years. That's DSN software. It's probably the best one that we've seen out there. It's a very sophisticated, high-end program, a little bit on the high end of the price scale as well, but for what it does, I'd certainly be one of the ones as a periodontist that I would highly recommend that you take a look at. What about voice recognition? That is a really good question. When it comes to voice recognition for things like charting, I am a fairly big fan of it. Most of the ones that are out there aren't all that great. You can certainly integrate programs like Dragon, Naturally Speaking, and other ones like that for charting because you have a limited vocabulary with that. For progress notes, I'm not a fan of it for two reasons. Number one is that it's not really all that accurate. Most of them will claim about a 90% accuracy, which sounds good, except that when you think about it, that means 1 word out of 10 is going to be spelled, or it's going to be the wrong word, spelled incorrectly. So that's one issue. The other thing is that all of us know when we do a typical dental procedure, a good 80% of it is the same thing over and over. So do you really want to be saying the same thing over and over when you can use a program like an EasyNotes Pro, for example, where you make one mouse click and it spits the whole thing out? So I'm not a big fan for voice recognition for progress notes. For charting, I think it's kind of like the holy grail, but we'll see. Some questions about the high-tech ad, which we already answered. Will prices on cone beam units come down and be more competitive in the near future? Yes, we're already seeing that now. When cone beam came out a few years ago, we were seeing typical pricing, 175 to 200,000. Within the last year, both Gendex and Kodak, they have units that were priced at 119, and then you can typically get it through a dealer for about 99,000. My understanding is that Alwandi has one that's coming out that I think is going to be priced in the high 70s, low 80s. We are definitely starting to see some downward pressure on some of these machines. So if you've been sitting on the sidelines waiting for the prices to go below 100,000, your wait is hopefully going to be over soon. So I am very optimistic about that. I'm just trying to get some more of these questions. Another really good question here. Do I see a difference in image quality with AC versus DC X-ray heads with digital sensors or phosphor plates? From an image quality standpoint, no. Most of the offices that we work with are using 10 to 15-year-old Gendex 770 heads, perfectly happy with the image quality. DC heads are going to give you two things. First off is that they're going to give you a slightly lower exposure time for sensors than you would with an AC head, usually maybe 1 or 2 notches on the dial below it. So not a huge difference, but enough. The other thing that we see is if you ever take a full mouth series with sensors, you may oftentimes find that 1 or 2 of the images are slightly over or underexposed, even though you didn't do anything different. And it's because of that AC current that it's got a peak and a valley. And if you hit it right at that peak or right at that valley, the image may be off a little bit. With a DC head, because of that flat line exposure, you're not going to get that inconsistency. So slightly lower exposure time, a little more consistency. If for a new office, we're almost always recommending DC heads just because the cost difference isn't all that great. But if you have AC heads, there's no reason to think, unless you've got like 30-year-old SS white X-ray heads with a cone beam X-ray shaped head, you shouldn't have to worry that you're going to have to replace your X-ray heads. Another nice question here about touchscreen monitors. I like touchscreen monitors. My favorite is from a company called Exervision. The downside to touchscreen monitors is that they're very expensive still. A decent Dell 17-inch monitor you can find nowadays for under $200. The touchscreens are still in the $700 to $800 range. A touchscreen basically avoids the need to use a mouse. You're just touching the screen. From a sterilization standpoint, it's a little bit tricky depending on the type of monitor as well. Other questions here. We got some nice thank yous. Thank you very much as well. Great, a lot of nice comments here. We have 2 monitors but still have to sit with the patient while you review the information. Any other suggestions? No, I mean, to me, that's really what you're there for, is to sit there with the patient. You've got to have that relationship. For those of you that do have 2 monitors and are looking for an easy way to control what goes on each screen, there is a program, I'm trying to think because we use it here in our office, called Ultramon. It's a $39 program. It's, I think it's realtimesoft.com. You can just do a Google search for Ultramon. It allows you to set up keystrokes. So, for example, if you want to move something from one screen to the other by hitting Alt-Z or Control-X, you can do that. It allows you to move the whole screen with just one mouse click. It's a cool little program, and I would definitely recommend something like that as well. I'm going to have time for maybe 1 or 2 more questions, and then we're going to have to cut it off. I have multiple offices with a good Pen-X machines and want to go digital. Should I go phosphor plates for all or use sensors or PAs or stay with film? If you're going to go digital, I think you got to take the plunge. I mean, if you're going to have hard sensors and phosphor plates, it's, why do you want to still keep the film? If you have an existing pan, you basically have you have 3 choices actually. You could get a new digital pen. You're going to be spending about $30,000 to $35,000 for that. You can use a phosphor plate system, as we talked about. A phosphor plate system like the ScanX that can do pans and sets is going to run you around $20,000. The other option is that there are companies out there that can do pan conversions, and it's about half the cost of a new pan for about $15,000 or so, and you can actually digitize your existing film pan. So I think that's a great option for a lot of offices. But if you're going to go digital, life is a lot easier if you just get rid of the film and the chemicals and the processor all in one shot. Someone asked me a question about being able to take notes on the webinar if they couldn't take notes. You're going to be getting, by tomorrow, I'm going to send everybody, as I mentioned this earlier, the entire webinar has been recorded. You'll get a link so you can download the entire complete webinar. I'm also going to give you a download link for a copy of all the slides. So you'll have that. It'll be like a PDF file where you've got 6 slides per page, but you'll be able to read the text and certainly be able to function with that. Let me see if I have time for 1 more question here. Just trying to skim through some of this stuff here. I apologize. I'm finding because a lot of these questions have already been asked. Kind of comment on the issues with computers and capture cards and imaging equipment. As I said, most of the intraoral camera companies are now going to a USB interface. The problem with USB is the same problem you have with any USB device, is that the software has to know how to work with the hardware. There's a little file called a driver, and if they don't work together, it's not going to be compatible. So you're going to find that USB cameras will work with most image management software, but not all of them. So I do apologize because I am going to need to end the presentation at this point. As I'd mentioned, and I do apologize, a number of you still had questions, and I really want to get to all of them. I'm thinking maybe I might want to do another webinar where we talk for 10 minutes.